As of 2023, the Inflation Reduction Act is making available $270 billion federal dollars to help cover most of the cost if you want to do like I've already done and reduce your carbon emissions by taking steps to electrify your home and save money on your utilities. I recently finished a complete retrofit of my 1970s home. It's now fully electrified, meaning we don't have a gas bill at all, and all the electric appliances are largely powered by our solar panels, so the energy to power them comes from the sun for free. Taking these steps to reduce our carbon emissions by as much as possible, roughly 57%, saves us so much money each month that we still come out way ahead financially, even after putting roughly $50 a month toward offsetting the remaining 43% of the carbon footprint for my entire family, including my wife and 2 kids. In other words, my family of 4 has achieved carbon neutrality, and we're saving a bunch of money doing it. Granted, my family did invest a significant amount of money to electrify our home over the last several years, but with the billions of dollars now available to help cover most of the cost for others to do the same, I wanted to make a video to help show you how much money you can get to renovate your home and how much more money you'll save each month as a result. The best place to start is at rewiringamerica.org, where they have a tool to help you calculate that number. Link in the video description below. For example, let's say for a homeowner in Los Angeles with a household income of $65,000 a year and a family of 4, they can get $14,000 in upfront discounts covering up to 100% of costs and $5,000 in tax credits for a total of $19,000 in federal incentives. And those upgrades should save them about $1,350 a year on their bills. To help walk you through each step of this and show you what it looks like when it's done, I'm going to use pieces of a video that I made a few months ago giving a tour of my family's fully electrified home, and I, present day Marco, will break in to share what federal incentives are now in place for implementing each of those steps. So let's hand it off to my past self for the tour. My first big project on the path to full electrification was to install this solar array to power everything. I actually did the installation myself. This is just over a 5 kilowatt system, and at the time that cost me roughly $9,000 before getting about 30% of that back as a tax credit. So it was just over $6,000 out of pocket, and the savings on my electric bill in the subsequent 4 years has almost paid for the entire system at this point. For most people, it's probably more reasonable to hire a company to do the work, in which case it'll be a decent amount pricier and have a longer payback period, but in virtually every case, getting solar is a solid financial decision that'll end up saving you money in the long run, and I couldn't recommend it more highly. Going back to that tool at rewiringamerica.org, you can see that federal incentive for 30% of solar equipment and installation costs is still in place. This one is in the form of a tax credit, which is better than a tax deduction or exemption, which would only reduce your taxable income. This tax credit actually reduces your tax bill dollar for dollar. By the way, this website has way more information than I can include in this video, like the fact that there's also a 30% tax credit for battery storage with your solar, and if you click on this more info button for rooftop solar, you can learn about how you might actually qualify for an additional 10 or 20% of the cost of your system under certain circumstances. So, my next project was to install this 220 volt outlet here in my garage. And we did that when our family first got an electric vehicle, or EV, to be able to charge it here in the garage. That way the vast majority of our transportation would also be powered by solar rather than gasoline. By the way, EVs also have a much lower lifetime cost of ownership. They have so many fewer moving parts underneath the hood rather than all of the stuff that you're used to seeing in a regular car that can break down. It's just an extra trunk. They brake regeneratively, so they basically never need brake jobs, and they don't use oil, so they don't need oil changes. Pretty much the only regular maintenance they need is windshield wiper fluid and new tires every now and then, just like you'd need with any other car. And as far as fueling, I haven't owned this car for quite a year yet, but just in the last 10 months, I have saved over $1,500 relative to what I would have spent on the equivalent amount of gas. And now you can get tax credits for this as well. Up to $1,000 for an EV charger and either $7,500 for a new electric vehicle or $4,000 for a used one. The next big project was replacing our old 40-gallon tank gas-powered water heater with this on-demand electric water heater. And this project I did hire out since I'm not great at plumbing and it required installing this new electric sub-panel over here. And there are new incentives for these things as well. And many of these are in the form of a rebate. So once they're available in late 2023, the discount will be taken right off the bill from your manufacturer or contractor rather than taking it off your tax bill. So if the steps you take toward electrification end up requiring additional capacity for your electric panel, rather than adding a new sub-panel like I did, you can actually get rebates for up to $4,000 toward upgrading to a larger main panel, plus up to $2,500 toward electrical wiring and $1,750 toward an electric heat pump water heater. Or there's a $600 tax credit for the electric panel and a $2,000 one for the water heater. We were lucky enough to get this electric washer and dryer with the house, so so we didn't need to replace a gas dryer. And there will be a rebate for up to $840 for a heat pump clothes dryer. But this is a good one to look at the more info on, because if you already have an electric dryer, you can't get this one. And what percentage of it you're eligible for depends on your income. And then out here, we bought this electric stove, which I do like a lot. It's so much easier to clean than a gas stove. Plus, we don't have an open flame inside our house. My only regret is going with a relatively traditional electric stove. If I'd known about electric induction stoves at the time, I would have gotten one of those instead. If you haven't already seen it, I highly recommend this Climate Town video on the insanity of gas stoves and the brilliance of induction ones here. There will be a rebate for up to $840 for an electric or induction stove, and this is another good one to check out the more info on. So finally, the last project that was just completed a week or so ago was replacing our 3-decade-old gas furnace. But real quick, before I get to that, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the first step that anyone should take is to try and reduce their use of climate control as much as possible. We keep our thermostat here set a few degrees below perfect comfort during the winter, and just dress warm inside the house and have electric blankets under the fitted sheets and lots of warm blankets and comforters on the beds at night. And then obviously just reverse that kind of logic when it comes to using AC in the summer. And then it's a great idea to have an energy audit done by a professional and implement any suggestions they might give you to better seal and weatherize your home with things like good weather stripping around doors, like you can see here, as well as just more insulation, which is what I'm working on with this stuff back here. There's a tax credit for up to $1,200, or there will be a rebate for up to $1,600 for weatherization. This also seems like the best time to mention that if you decide to take a lot of these steps, there will be another rebate you could potentially qualify for that's up to $8,000 if your retrofits have a modeled energy system savings of 35% or more. But it's important to do your homework because not all of the guidance is out yet, so at this point it's unclear whether this one is going to be available in addition to other rebates and tax credits for individual specific steps or not. For the winter, when we do need supplemental heat, we've now replaced our old gas furnace with this amazing new heat pump. This is the air handler, which took the place of the old furnace, which would roar so loudly every time it turned on. But this guy is practically silent, especially when the door is closed. And like I mentioned, heat pumps simply pump heat from one place to another rather than generating it, so they use far less energy than furnaces. And you might be thinking, what about when it's below freezing outside? Where is the heat coming from then? And the answer is that there's still plenty of thermal energy in what you'd consider cold air. This condenser unit out here effectively concentrates the relatively little amount of heat in the outside air and pumps it inside. And in case you've heard that heat pumps don't work well in cold weather in the past, well, that technology has come a long way in recent years, and the new cold weather heat pumps do fantastically. For example, it is currently 17 degrees out with a high of 29 and a low of 9 degrees today. The heat pump is currently running. Good opportunity to show you what it's like. Over the last week, we have gotten over 3 feet of snow. It's barely gotten above freezing in the last week, and like I said, we've gotten somewhere around 3 feet of snow in the last 5-6 days, something like that. Again, it's 17 degrees Fahrenheit right now, so that's, 15 degrees Fahrenheit below freezing. And yet, our cold weather heat pump is out here just whirring away, doing perfectly fine. This particular model is still 100% efficient, even at 5 degrees Fahrenheit. Recently kicked back on to bring it back up to 65 again, and is having absolutely no trouble doing that. So if you're considering getting a heat pump but worried that it doesn't work well in the cold, rest assured it works just fine. And for this kind of heat pump air conditioner slash heater, there's a tax credit for up to $2,000, but it seems pretty clear that in most circumstances it'll be better to go with the $8,000 rebate. I am so excited that a retrofit like this should no longer be an expensive fight that is just a drop in the bucket, but instead, as old fossil fuel appliances break down and need replacing, it'll be by far the most affordable option, should be pretty easy as contractors become more familiar with these technologies. That'll be the new standard, and when society as a whole starts transitioning to electrification and renewable power production, it'll become the systemic change that we need to ensure a sustainable future for our children and grandchildren. I hope some of this has been helpful for you, and please ask any questions that you have down in the comments, and I'll answer as many as I can. You may also be interested in watching the entire house tour video. I had to cut out a lot of important context to fit it inside this one. And you can subscribe if you want to see future videos like the deep dive I'll be doing on my cold weather central heat pump, its energy usage, and how much it'll cost to run over the entire first winter. Thanks for watching.